Hey everyone, welcome to Train the Trainer session with Build Power. We're going to get started here shortly. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Hey everyone, this is Seth with Action Network Action Builder, and this is Train the Trainer. This session is going to be all about how we design a program that allows folks in our organization to use Action Builder, become comfortable using a new tool, getting folks enthusiastic about it, and we're going to share our experiences. I'll share some tips with you as well. Hey, Jerome, thank you. I'm glad that you're able to hop over and join our session. Thanks to everyone that's been a part of Build Power over the last couple of days. This is our first go around. Appreciate your attendance, your patience. We do hope that this is helpful. And we're going to get into the Train the Trainer session here in a moment. I'm giving folks an opportunity to hop over. I know we have back-to-back sessions going on. That's because we have a lot of good information to share with you between folks on staff, my colleagues, Martha and Michael and Jeff and everyone on the ANAB team, alongside our partners, which is probably the most important piece, who are sharing their stories of using Action Builder to build power and organize within their individual programs. So important. So thank you for hanging with us. Thank you for sitting in on these sessions today and learning together. So I'm going to go ahead and hop into this session. And if you would, we will be using the chat. Looks like we have a little bit of a smaller group, which is actually a good thing. We can be a little bit more freewheeling, if you will. But if you would just introduce yourself in the chat, perhaps just your name, maybe your organization and where you're located. I'll go first. My name is Seth. He, him are pronouns. I am proudly with Action Builder, and I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. So if you're in the last session, you know I'm up in Cleveland. We had a really good dialogue with Abby with the Cleveland Housing Organizing Project, CHOP. So let's go ahead and do our intros. See, we have Tim, and we have Sarah with CWA, names I know, and Jerome, welcome. Taylor with CWA, welcome. Awesome. Hi, Matt, and AFT Austin, and then Tammy with HSAA in Alberta. So we have folks from all over North America today. Awesome, welcome. So what is on the agenda for today? I'm going to go over some Train the Trainer concepts. Basically, first thing is we want to analyze the need for training. We'll come up with some goals, learning and outcomes. Those are going to be the key components of a training. And then we'll frame that in Action Builder, which is kind of our hopeful outcome, is that we can have a plan where we can do a training internally on the Action Builder toolset. A little background about myself. I have been with the Action Builder team for 2 years now. I've been here since the launch. I always forget 2020, so I'm not exactly sure if it's going on 3 or 2 or what, but I'm firmly embedded in the work of Action Builder and training. I do have a background in digital organizing as well as traditional organizing here in Cleveland. And I've worked in adult learning at the community college level, doing training programs for folks interested in technology or technical careers. So glad to be able to be presenting this session today with you all. Your feedback and your kind of input is going to be helpful and critical in this train the trainer piece. So we can definitely get into it. So again, the agenda starts with train the trainer concepts. Then we'll go into training outlines, examples, and ideas. So I'll talk about some ways that we have done group trainings with partners here at Action Builder, some ideas you might want to replicate, and some ideas that I hopefully, if you've done trainings, that you would share out. And then we'll talk about tool traction. So what does that mean? So basically, I always say this in onboardings and just in general conversation about any tool that you want to bring in an organization, but the best tools are the ones you use. So how do we create consensus around using Action Builder on a day-to-day in our organizing work? So we want to uncover ways to increase enthusiasm and buy-in. So how do we do that? We'll talk about that. So we have about an hour together. Oh, I must have had a replicated slide in there. We've already done intros, so why am I going backwards? Oh, gotcha. All right. So hopefully this is not apropos. I was kind of being I don't know, taking a risk in adding this question because I'm like, hopefully it's not this training as an example. But in the chat, what is a feature or a factor that made a training a bad experience? So you can, so if you think back to a training that you were part of, what made it not so helpful? What were some of the kind of aspects that made it not helpful? And this doesn't have to be like a paragraph answer. It can just be like a one-word answer. Maybe it was too long. Maybe it didn't have the. Maybe it was too fast. But what are some things that contribute to a bad training experience, in your opinion? And you could put that in the chat. So Jerome added that it's over my head. So something goes over your head. Mike B said unprepared presenters. Anyone else? No, not interactive. No visuals of info being presented. Jeff said Zoom links don't work. Yeah, we get quite a few of those on support. Also do support here at Action Builder, Action Network. Too technical, no real world examples. Lack of being able to call our text trainers questions. Okay. Exclusive focus on how to do X, no explanation of what X was or why I would want to do X. So contextualizing, it sounds like you're talking to Taylor. So thank you all for putting that information in the chat. That's helpful. EA says, I like examples and use cases to show some applicability or interactive practice. So I'm hearing a lot of folks speak to, they want interaction, they want to be able to contact their trainers, maybe have some additional resources and ways to connect. One thing that I often see, or people always ask, or maybe they're disappointed if there's not recordings offered. People have different ways of learning and acquiring skills and knowledge. So sometimes people like to have something to reference, whether that be a video or audio or even a reading material. Me, I like to have I'm a manual person, meaning like I like to read a manual, which I'm probably that less than 1% of people that actually like that. So I would say not having access to that, or maybe for other folks not having access to like a recording that they can replay. All right, moving on. So some key training concepts to latch on to as we kind of put our training hats on today and we go into our individual organizations. Maybe you've already done a training on Action Builder or some other platform. Obviously, we're focusing in on Action Builder today. Or you might be planning to do a refresher training, what have you. Some key training concepts that we're going to want to think about is one, we want to be concise. And we always want to be thoughtful of the time. So one, be concise, meaning with your information. So if you can distill what you're trying to convey, whether it be a concept or an actual skill, less is best. So be as concise, meaning if there's a way to distill that information down to steps. I'm a big fan of steps. So step one, step two, step three. That's a good thing to do. Be focused. So trying to be as focused on the task at hand. So an example of that today is that, as much as I kind of want to generalize this a bit, the focus is really on action builder. So we're going to definitely key back into action builder and how we want to train on that for the sake of this training. Consider time and stick to a schedule. So folks have a lot of different demands, particularly when we're in virtual space, as we are during this pandemic. We often have things that are back. We often have meetings and work that's coming back to back to back. So we definitely want to consider the time. So timing out your actual training and then also sticking to that schedule. It's better to wrap things up a little bit shorter than taking things too long. Share your this is really important. So share your lived experience and expertise. So again, I saw a point in the chat where things get too technical. You as a trainer, you're in that space, because you stepped up. Either you saw something and you recognize something in yourself and your abilities, or someone selected you. But the most important piece that you bring to a training is your lived experience and your stories. That is a recipe for the expertise that you can bring in using the actual tool set. That's not to say that you shouldn't have the technical expertise in using the tool as well, but people are more likely to latch on to a story and believe your expertise and believe what you're saying when you can connect them based upon a story or experience that you've had with the tool, with organizing, what have you. You want to kind of center that in your training if you can. So that's a point that I really wanted to pull out there. Use visuals. So you may or may not have a lot of time to put into visuals, but if you can include some visuals, audio, video, that's helpful. A large swath majority of adult learners do appreciate or need visuals in order to acquire that information or make that information stick. So if you can use visuals, that's something that you're going to want to have as a part of your training. Encourage questions. So you want to be able to pause or let people know when they can have when they are able to share questions. Let them know that their questions will be addressed, how and in what manner. And then lastly, as I alluded to, just being able to have supplemental information. So will they be able to have the recording? Will they be able to have access to the presentation materials? Are there supplemental materials that maybe a guide or a manual that they could be able to reference? That is another key piece that you want to consider. So we're going to translate all these kind of key concepts. Again, you may not pull all of these pieces in, but the more that you have of this as a part of your training, the better it's going to go off. And using a new platform. So a next piece that we want to go talk about is knowing your audience. So we talked a bit about first just the key concepts of what makes a good training. The next piece is really knowing your audience. So you in your program or in your organization are going to know, or you can endeavor to know the people that you're going to be training. You can do that initially doing a short survey. You might do a 3 to 5 question survey about their thoughts or feelings of trying a new platform or using a new platform, so you kind of can get a temperature check on that. You can do that by following up and asking people, having those one-on-one conversations with individuals, getting an idea of what are they using currently, particularly with your organizers. Some people might be using a piece of technology, a platform. Some folks might be using spreadsheets or Google Sheets, and some people might be using paper and pencil, for example. So getting an idea and mapping out what those examples are, so that we know, Jeff, for example, because I'm looking at Jeff's face, really enjoys using paper and pencil. So we can kind of deliver and share what are some of the benefits that a tool like Action Builder could bring where that paper and pencil, for example, might be limiting to our program. So I pulled out three key pieces here. Again, this is related to learners or adult education. First, we want to respect our learners. We want to come from a place of humility as trainers. So we do want to maintain a respect for learners and affirm the diversity of learning styles and abilities. Everyone, acquiring new skills and knowledge and learning a platform is going to take multiple touch points for most people. So don't fall under the guise that one training is going to be a magic bullet, if you will, where people are going to automatically know everything they need to know. There's not going to be any issues or that they're going to like it initially. We want to respect that process of learning. Um, uh, then moving on to the next piece for adult learners, it's really important that it's practical. So we want to frame the training as a way to solve a problem. So a lot of people, if they have mandatory trainings, they want to know the why of, the reason why they're carving out time to be there. So if we can say we're trying a new tool, it's called Action Builder. It's been successful for this organization that's similar to ours and doing this work. It helped to increase efficiency by 32%, and they were able to win a campaign in a matter of 3 weeks. We can be practical about why we're doing this training, and then our learners have something to latch onto in order to have that why to kind of frame the importance of the training or the benefit of the training. And then most importantly, I think be positive. So we want to, even if it's something that maybe you as a trainer consider a small win, we definitely want to cheer people on. So an Action Builder that could look like successfully using the query or adding the quick filter to create a query to return and build that list that it would be impossible to do with Excel or paper and pencil. People are going to be feeling really happy and excited about that. And we want to build upon that enthusiasm by celebrating those quick wins. And we want to affirm them as they practice those skills. And one way that we can do that that we've done in the past is using things like quizzes and games as a part of a way to practice Action Builder. So we'll talk about that on how you can use quizzes and games in your training to practice and also build confidence for users as well. So we definitely want to be positive when we're training. So we're going to go back and do some interactive in the chat. I want to know, thinking about what we've just talked about, who are you as a trainer? So whether you've trained or not, or maybe you've joined this session because you're thinking about it, or you've been voluntold to do it internally, what are the two strengths that you bring to a training? What are your top two strengths that you would bring to a training? And you can drop that in the chat and I'll read those off. Jerome says enthusiasm. I definitely could attest to your enthusiasm, Jerome. Thanks for that. Tim said friendliness and expertise. Anyone else? What are your top two strengths? If you have a top strength, great. Sarah said expertise and examples. Those are always good. Servant leadership. So I guess that's your second one. Yeah, there's a lot to be said about humility and training. Even as a trainer and as someone that's an expert, we always are constantly learning because the tool set itself is constantly improving and evolving. So what might have been true a month ago, you might have to learn and explain something in a new way. So we're constantly learning and improving on how we're translating a tool that organizers are going to want to use or going to need to use to kind of benefit as a companion to their work in the field. Todd said communication and listening. Taylor said patience, workshopping use cases. And then EA said humor and adaptability. Thank you. Those are all excellent. I think most folks were able to pull out those top two strengths. If I had to think about it, I'd say for me, Definitely, uh, I'd say the communication piece. I like to think of myself as a technical like translator. And the cool thing with Action Builder is actually it's made for, with, and by organizers. So we don't have to do too much technical translating. It's not like it's a platform that was created in Silicon Valley or like corporate space where we have to change the language to make it fit our needs. It's already in the language of organizers and organizing, so that's a help. But sometimes, it can be intimidating to move from uh, technology or ways of organizing that we've used previously to a new platform. So a lot of folks don't like to think of themselves as technical people, or they don't like to think of themselves as data people. They're just organizers. But in the year 2021, if you have a smartphone and you're doing organizing, then you have the tools needed in order to use a tool like Action Builder. It's just building people up, giving them the confidence that this is going to be something that's going to help them do their job even better, reach more people, and really expand the capabilities of their work. Coco said communication and patience. Awesome. It does take patience because again, everyone has their different ways of coming to learn. Everyone has their different biases and maybe roadblocks to change. So a big piece of what we're talking about here today is how do we create tool traction? How do we get everyone on board and in step? And the thing is, everyone's not necessarily going to be in step at the same time or in unison. But our hope is that over time, that people can uncover the value of a tool of Action Builder so that they can incorporate it into their work so that it can be that companion piece that organizers can rely on so that they know the people that they are organizing and they can build that leadership over time. So yeah, communication and patience are definitely key. All right, so I'm going to hop away from my presentation here in a moment, and I'm actually going to go into some other kind of key materials that I think would be helpful. And then I'll go into Action Builder and just kind of walk through a couple of different scenarios, if you will, that I've walked through in training before. So here we're breaking it out. So introducing Action Builder to your org. So so maybe you've just joined Build Power 2021. You don't know much about Action Builder. It's all new, but you're walking away and you're really excited. You think it might be a good tool for your program. How do you introduce it to maybe decision makers? If you are a decision maker, how do you gain enthusiasm internally about change in moving away from something that people might be comfortable with to doing something new? How do you introduce it? Then we'll talk about how I've approached the training and breaking it out in the different kind of user types. We do have 4 user types in Action Builder. So I really look at it as 2 groupings. So first is going to be training admins. So basically, in a nutshell, we're going to group users who dig into the data and do reports, and those are going to be your admins and your leads. So who are the folks that need to report out activity? Who are the folks that are building the list? They're creating tasks and they're assigning tasks, and they have access to be able to import and export information in Action Builder. That training is going to look a little different from what I have here on our last piece here is training activists. So the great thing with Action Builder, the thing that gets me so excited is just the ability and ease of use for our activist user types who are going to be your volunteers. They're going to be your members who are coming in on the weekends, and then maybe they're knocking on doors, maybe they're doing literature drops, what have you. And whereas folks might have been given like stacks of paper before, or maybe a spreadsheet with their name, or it's color coded, and they're inundated with information. The nice thing with Action Builder is that you're logged in, you have a task that's been assigned to you, and you're only going to see the people that you actually need to reach out to, whether that be a turf, and you have the actual nice list that's organized by street address. If I'm an activist, and I'll show you that on my demo and I'm logged in, I'm going to only see what I need to do. I'm not going to get any other information that might be confusing. So when I'm doing trainings for our activists or organizers, it's really fun just because people get really excited and amped up about the ease of use. So it's a good way to in order to get people excited and get that traction. So again, if you do it by role, I think that's really helpful in getting that buy-in, because the organizers are getting to see the ease of use from their day-to-day work in the field, and their admins are really getting to see the power of Action Builder and being able to make those strategic decisions and having that ultimate transparency, whether that be using the activity stream to see how much work is getting done or the notes that are being added, or if it's kind of being able to create a good workflow in creating tasks. So I'm going to showcase that as well. But first things first, introducing Action Builder to your org. That could start with downloading the Action Builder Guide to Building Strong, Resilient, Leader-Led Organizing, better known as our organizing guide. This is something we released, we re-released a kind of newer version, but it's been around for several months now. But it really goes in depth on the type of organizing or the method of organizing that Action Builder was really built to support. And within the guide, there's actually some activities that you can do with your team that really help you to map out how you would use Action Builder. So let's take a look at that. So in introducing, we're gonna download the guide, and we'll share these links as well. But here is the actual guide, and it really kind of gives you a nice idea, again, about why Action Builder was developed, the model that was followed, our use of assessments, the core pieces of this model, which include assessments of leadership growth, one-on-one conversations, and assigning tasks. I'm gonna scroll all the way down here where we have our little workbook, which you can go over with your team. So for here, we have the first question is, how would an at-a-glance wall chart in your pocket impact your ability to build strategies for your campaign? Have you utilized a similar method in past work? If yes, what kind of visual tracking did you use? Paper charts, whiteboard, Microsoft Word. So now we can start actually, again, this is the assessment before we do our training, in looking at, what are people using? How would Action Builder benefit, or what they're currently using is limiting? Some other questions about quick filtering is just and other features of the tool. You can run through these different questions with your team that help. So we've talked about contact tracking, we talk about the ability to do filtering, the ability to do things like uploads and exports in Action Builder, relationships and notes, now called connections, and being able to do robust power mapping. So we really just walk through all of the key pieces that exist in Action Builder, but we do it from the standpoint of organizers and time-tested methods that organizers have used for centuries. So how we can translate that to this new kind of digital platform. So I recommend definitely downloading the guide as a starting point. Another piece that I wanted to speak to, again, that you might want to do is email information about Action Builder and joining a demo. That might be a next step prior to doing that training. So I'll pull over here. We have a resources page. And this question here is, how can I get my team organization to support adopting Action Builder? We have an email template. So we'll pop that open here. And I saw a question come in the chat. I will pause here in a moment. So you don't even have to do any work. Maybe we just want to get the word out on Action Builder. So we have a little email that comes up here. It says, considering Action Builder for our team. And then boom, you can massage this any way that makes sense for your program. But essentially, it's just saying, I'm checking out a new relational organizing tool set from the makers of Action Network. And then we kind of bullet out how it could be helpful. It can assist us in identifying community members who are ready to get active and easily map their relationships. It can move us from pen and paper to an impactful, easy to use, secure tool set. It allows us to spend more time developing volunteers into leaders, helping people grow their strengths and expand their reach. And then we get the cost. So it's $50 per admin and free for activists, your volunteer users in the field. And so, being able to share information internally and become an evangelist, if you will, for Action Builder will get you a start on kind of getting that buy-in. Because again, change is something that is going to be different for everyone. And you want to have an approach that is respectful, that's enthusiastic, and that is showing the practicality of something that's going to be helpful and not a hindrance. All right, so is this a link from this? I always think there's a question, but it's always a link from Jeff, which is, oh, you got to download the organizing guide. Thanks, Jeff. That's awesome. All right, cool. So we've talked a bit about some key concepts for a good training. We talked about some things that make a not so good training, and then we talked a bit about how we can be great trainers in incorporating some key pieces of adult learning. That's being respectful of people's different styles of learning, them as human beings, as their lived experiences. We talked about your ability to be practical, so why. And then lastly, we said be enthusiastic, be positive. All right. So there looks like there's a question in the Q&A. I am not a fan of Zoom Q&A, if I'm going to be completely honest. If you can drop your Q&A in the chat, I can definitely get to that a little bit more easily. And Tim is asking, how do you approach organizers who are resistant to using a new tool? For example, they prefer using their own spreadsheets and feel like they have been forced or even punished by having to use a new tool. So again, I think you want to take a soft but yet enthusiastic approach. For adult learners, it's so key that it is practical and that it makes sense. People are so used to, particularly in technology, there's a lot of tools out there that, again, they're not necessarily useful. They're highly complex and they kind of become a hindrance. So if we can frame the practicality of a tool like Action Builder through real life examples, I think that's helpful. I think also we take baby steps as far as kind of migrating over to using a tool like Action Builder. We can do something again by splitting up those the trainings. So if that person happens to be someone that's in the field, we can just show them how beneficial it is to have something like Action Builder in your pocket, where it's much easier to add information or update a profile than it is to deal with a spreadsheet, for example, on your phone. And you can save time by not actually replicating work by actually putting data in one place and having to transfer it to another. So that's one way. But we definitely wanted to approach it, again, in a way that's positive, in a way that is practical, and giving them real concrete examples of how it was helpful for other people. It can't be a situation where you should just use this just because, or you should just use this because someone else said so, or because everyone else is doing it. People need a real why, a concrete why on how it's going to benefit them. And that comes from, being a trainer is part, being a good organizer. Organizers are trainers in a sense. We're building up people for them to understand their individual power and their collective power. So I think really understanding what is the hindrance, of someone wanting to switch over. If they feel like they're being punished, maybe kind of flipping it and showing them how, again, it can benefit them by helping them to save time, and not having to duplicate their efforts. Cool, that was a great question, Tim. All right, I'm gonna hop over into, so we started with the Action Builder Organizer Guide. And we talked a bit about this nice handy dandy email, which we can have, which helps us. We also have a guide that's our Getting Started guide. I think that was shared in a couple of sessions as well. But the Getting Started guide is also extremely helpful. Another piece of information that you can share internally to help people get on board. You always want to have that social proof. So other organizations that have successfully used it In my previous session, we had Abby from CHOP, which is the Cleveland Housing Organizing Project that's doing some really good work here in Northeast Ohio around fighting evictions. So real life examples, and we have some good examples via our blog. So that kind of social proof is helpful, but also from just being able to share how its standpoint of what the tool exactly does. I say our action builder guide is also another kind of helpful key piece of organizing that, sorry, key piece of information that you're going to want to have and share when people ask, well, what is this? You want to be able to have something that you can give them. So I definitely recommend this guide as well. This would be our getting started guide. So particularly the getting started guide is good if you already started using Action Builder and maybe you're planning on doing a training as a refresher or for new staff. You want to provide them with this guide as well. All right, so now I did mention obviously keeping things really positive and keeping things fun and light. So one of those ways that you can do that again is with games, and we can do those with like games or quizzes. You could build those into a PowerPoint deck. You can use other platforms out there that exist that allow you to do things like quizzes. There's quite a few of them. But I find that something just like a PowerPoint presentation works really well. So in this example, I'm just going to model what it might look like for doing a training with organizers and activists kind of logged into the system. I'm currently logged in as an admin. I'm going to do that view first. But with some of the exercises, and again, a key piece of training and learning is having people practice. So this is going to look like prior to having the training at whatever time you're having it, you're going to want to block it out on a calendar and send those folks a calendar invitation, and then being able to invite them as users into the system. So you're going to need their email address, their first name at minimum, and their email address so that you can invite them so that they have access to be able to log into Action Builder. We want to get them logged in, particularly when we're doing trainings and people are new to Action Builder. The login process is probably the thing that takes the most time. So we definitely want to make plans and adjustments for that. Usually when we're doing a training, I'd say it could take anywhere, particularly for, again, activists or organizers, folks that work in the field. It's going to probably take maybe a 4-hour block where we have a nice break in between. If we're going to get really kind of into the weeds of doing things like what's the wall chart, what's the list view, what's the map view, what's a worker profile. That can be cut back to 2 or even 1 hour, just depending on how in depth you're going into things. And you're going to want to chart that out and really have that kind of feel and understanding internally of what is needed and what is capable given the type of work environment you're in. You might, and this is kind of from my experience too, and kind of curriculum development and working in higher education, it might make sense depending again on your audience and knowing your audience and their appetite for change. You might want to do this in smaller kind of workshop type trainings where we're doing something around lunch, for 1 hour a day throughout the week. Whereas some people want to just kind of have all the information at once and walk away with perhaps a video or a guide. But you can actually survey prior to doing the training in order to get an idea of what's going to be the best fit. But again, in this example, we're gonna try to walk through various exercises so that folks that are part of this training and they've been invited to Action Builder, that they're going to practice doing different activities in Action Builder. So the first piece is that they're going to want to log in. One of the other things that we do often is help people figure out how to add Action Builder as a icon on their home screen on their phone. Really simple. If you want to pull that up, what I just did here is I went to our little help center. That's going to pull up our Zendesk guide, our knowledge base essentially. I know that this isn't here. It's going to be add Action Builder to your home screen. So that's going to be one step that you want to include in the training after you get folks logged in. Really easy. We give both steps for both people that are in using Chrome with their Android, perhaps, or with Safari if they're on their iPhone. So this basically allows you to help them learn how to add Action Builder as an icon to their home screen on their phone. This way, they don't have to continuously go into Safari, for example, type in training.actionbuilder.org and log in. They can just save it, and so that they can have access to the tool in one tap. And then that way, it works pretty much like an app, even though it's web-based and lightweight and all that good stuff. So step one, we've got folks invites and they've created their account and they've logged in. And then step two, they've added Action Builder as an app to their phone home screen. And that honestly is going to take a good bulk, if not a third of your training, depending on how many people you have in the training to get them set up to that point. So then we've got folks logged in, and I see some questions in here, and I will pause shortly to look at those. So we've logged in, and now we want to kind of give an overview of what the wall chart is. We might give folks a task of doing a query, for example. And then we would ask of the query, how many people responded yes. And again, these number results come up top. How many people responded yes to have signing a card? So I would have to go over here to my query, and then I would go under info, and I want to include all the people, and we will write out the task that we want them to do. And for the trainings that I've done in the past, I do in the before times include some printed materials. And you're in a room, for example, and you have those printed materials available to individuals. As an alternative, we can also share, if you use something like a Google Doc, you can share a link to that information page so that they can work through those steps and those assignments as well. So I want to see the field having to do with, I did say card signing, but I'm going to just go say membership status. And we want to see all the active members. So maybe my question was, on the wall chart, use a quick filter and tell me how many active members you have in the citywide lead campaign. And I have a result of 2. So the right answer would be a result of 2. So another way that we could gamify this is maybe we put people on teams and we start to actually assign points to the teams that get these answers correct. So that's another way to just keep it fun and light. And again, we're doing this on our phone also. That is key. You want to be training people in the medium of the way that they're going to be using it, and it also makes it a lot easier. If you're thinking that you're going to need to like procure like 15 laptops to do an Action Builder trainer, you absolutely do. An Action Builder training, you absolutely do not. We just need folks to have a smartphone, a cell connection, and you can do this training with folks on their phone. You're actually going to want to do it in that way as well. So I just did that, and I returned the expected result of 2. So then I would have obviously set this up ahead of time so that I could know what the correct answer is and actually get a score so that we know who is the team that won. So that's just one example. So we might have these varying activities where we're having people walk through and get more comfortable with Action Builder. And I found that that works really well. All right, I'm going to pause really quickly. How are we doing on time? Time check. All right, we are closing in on time. I do want to showcase how we do tasks. Field these questions right here. I'll go into walking through a task activity, and then we'll start to wrap up. Oh, no questions, just Jeff again. Okay, cool. I should know better by now. All right, so we actually went through the steps of here of kind of looking at how we would use a query. Another walkthrough test could be perhaps asking someone to set up a task. So I'm gonna walk through that. So Maybe we're asking them to set up a task. So I'm going to set up a brand new task here, and it's going to be follow-up phone calls. And again, you have this written down on a piece of paper, that exactly what you want them to do. And I'm going to give it a due date, apply it to people. You might want to look at adding different entities so that people can see visually of like what are the different types of entities that we can track in Action Builder in addition to people. So this might be our script. And you want to add some to-dos. So we have a list. So they actually are practicing adding these to-dos. So you want them to add an assessment, and we want to go over here to maybe some connections, and then fields. So let's look at membership status again. The next thing people can practice is creating a query. So I'm going to click on create a query, and maybe we give them specific information on what we want them to include in the query. So for example, we want these phone calls to be everyone that is a 3 and maybe unassessed that lives in a certain state. So that lives in Ohio. Let's see if that actually returns anyone. I don't know. 4 people. Okay, that's fine. And then we want to assign this task by cutting turf. So I'm going to go into create turf. I'll go into the map. Let's try the query builder instead. Set, hit apply. So there's my list of 4 people. I'm going to assign this to myself as an activist. There, I have already set up. And now I'm going to rename it train the trainer task number 2. Hit save. And now I'm going to go into my other browser where I'm logged in as a activist so that I can practice from that view. All right, I refresh the page. And now I'm going to actually resize the page so I can pretend like I'm on my phone. I'm in the field. Oops, it's not right. There we go. Oh, here we go. So now I'm on my phone. I am seeing my tasks, and now a part of my training, again, this is like a real life scenario where the task has been assigned to me. Let's say I just logged into Action Builder as an activist. You'll see that I only have access to the campaign that I've been assigned to. I can't go to the wall chart. I can only go to my task. So I'm really just seeing what I need to do, which is great. I see that the first thing I need to do, which is due tomorrow, is this task here. So I tap on it, and perhaps my practice is again to role play. So this is where the role play. So these are a couple of elements that we want to incorporate to keep it fun. One, we might be working as a group to do to walk through the practice steps. We might be wanting to do them via Teams where we're tracking points, kind of like a quiz style. Another piece is to do role playing. So we could also have this where the individual is doing that one-on-one conversation with someone in the training group. So one person serves as the person that they're trying to organize or add to the campaign. And one person is working in the organizer capacity or activist capacity, and they're having that one-on-one conversation and doing that follow-up after the conversation. So that's another way to kind of maybe incorporate 2 trainings in one when you're working with newer organizers. to have that practice in incorporating Action Builder. So I'm going to practice moving through my list. I practice moving through my list here and doing my assigned task. So the first thing I'm going to do is change the assessment. The next thing is going to be adding a note. And of course, this is going to be happening after I have that one-on-one conversation. I'm adding the information and filling out the individual profile in Action Builder and adding that information to update the individual profile. All right, so I'm gonna close out of that view, and we've done all this from our phone, and we're moving through our targets as practice. So you can incorporate the role play of the one-on-one as part of your training as well. So that's another way, again, to kind of bring on a new tool, but then also be practicing things like the one-on-one conversations that might be a part of your program, whether you are kind of brushing up on it or you're training, again, new staff. All right, so is this a question up here? All right. So I've walked through our steps. I'm going to hop back over to my other browser here, and we can actually see that I've completed some of these tasks. And go ahead and go into our close for today.
Hey, Seth, it's Jeff. You have one question here in the chat. Kevin asks, what does refresh do? Is that the way to save all new updates?
Okay, so that must have been refresh when I was refresh on the quick filter. Is that where I was? No. Refresh. Oh, I'm sorry. Refreshing the browser. Yeah. So if I made an update, like created a new task in my one browser, because I was kind of moving between browsers because I'm logged in as two different users, because I wanted to give a good example of what it looked like from my activist view. So I have a limited menu. When I created the task here as an admin, when I went over to my other browser where I'm logged in as an activist, I did need to refresh the browser in order for that new task to show up. So I hope that answers your question. All right, so we have our final session that's coming up for Build Power. Thank you so much for joining Train the Trainer. Hopefully this was helpful, giving you some ideas on how you might incorporate some training keys, particularly for adult learners, into a training program, how you could get buy-in, how you can get some tool traction on bringing Action Builder into your organization, and making a case for why it can be a benefit to people at various kind of levels and titles within your organization, particularly thinking about activists and organizers. It can definitely be something that helps to make the work more efficient. It allows them to really kind of focus in on building deep relationships rather than worrying about so much the administrative piece or the data piece of kind of having to transcribe written notes into another system. There's definitely a benefit there. So thank you so much for joining. I know that Jeff dropped the link in there for our final session. I'm going to go ahead and close the session down. Thank you.